Hey, it's Kyle from Soil Agronomy, and today we're going to talk about mental health. And I've tried making this video about 4 or 5 times over the past few months, and what it's kind of boiled down to is at some point I got to do it. And I was on Twitter the other day. Um, Kevin Kalb was talking about his brother and what happened there, and um, if you're unfamiliar with that, I would go and take a look at it. And I kind of wanted to share what's happened to me in the last, let's say, 9 months or so, maybe actually more like 6 months. I've always dealt with anxiety in my life. Not really had much of an issue with it, other than a lot of former employers always said I wear my emotions on my sleeve. Now, fast forward to about a year ago, really about this time, I kind of went up to my wife and said, "Hey, I'm going through some stuff. I really think I should talk to somebody about what's going on." Now, I've had a lot of mental health training and training on how to deal with this, and she wasn't really prepared for it. I've had to deal with some customers, clients, people I work with that have had something similar happen to them, but not had the let's just say the wherewithal to ask for help. But I've had some cries for help that I've realized what they were, and since I've had some experience with this personally, I've been able to help them through what they've been going through. So my wife, bless her heart, as the Southerners would say, says why, and if you've had any kind of struggles with anything, you know that that's probably the worst thing to ask. Really, the best thing to ask is, I fully understand. Let me know what you're thinking or what's going on when you feel comfortable doing it. Now, when she asked me that in that fashion, I balked and just kind of gritted my teeth and did what I normally do, and I just dealt with what I was dealing with. So, as the anxiety kind of built last year, and I will say that I've had this most of my adult life. It built and built, and I'm not sure if you're dealing with anxiety, you'll fully understand this as anxiety builds and you get to the point where you're too anxious to do something, and the fact that you won't do it makes you even more anxious, and that's kind of how things kind of went for me last year. I got concerned about fields, um, different things like I normally do, and the lack of me being able to deal with some issues made it worse because as much as I wouldn't want to go deal with it, I started even getting more depressed, not depressed, but anxious about it. Um, Now, if you're in the same boat I was, you'll fully understand what I was going through. So it just kind of kept building through the summer, and eventually got to the point where I've had two panic attacks in my life. One of them was last September, September 4th. I can remember the day now. Um, I was trying to drink every night to kind of get to the point where I could fall asleep and deal with that way. So I was dealing with that, but very poorly. We'll just put it that way. So I was dealing with it, and if you're familiar with the way alcohol works, once you wake up the next morning, you pretty much get even more anxious because the thing that's been medicating your body to calm down is gone, and now you're even more anxious the next morning. Now, I wasn't an alcoholic. I've passed the alcoholic test because in August last year I started talking to a therapist. So we went through that. There's a protocol. They ask you questions about depression. I wasn't depressed. I wasn't an alcoholic. I was just drinking at night. Didn't feel like I had to. It wasn't any of those things. It was just anxiety. I had just too much anxiety. And I got put on Zoloft, or generic Zoloft sertraline, in September. So September 4th, literally the day my life kind of took a different change or different path. And for me, going to the doctor to talk about it, on the way there, called some family members, talked to them about it, and I found out that I have a very large family history of anxiety issues. So my doctor even told me, he said it can run in the family, but there's no really conclusive evidence that that's what happens, but it does. It runs in my family. Just got put on sertraline. I literally do have some videos of me as like day one through, I don't know, maybe once a week or every few days through my journey of when it started really working. So it takes a few weeks, and they'll give you something that helps you get into that transition as your body kind of gets used to the medication. Now, even though I was on sertraline, it helped, but there are some side effects I dealt with. I dealt with some sleeplessness where I couldn't fall asleep at night, so I was taking it in the morning. So there's really two times you can take it, morning and night. About 6-8 weeks ago, maybe 2 months ago, I decided that I was going to switch it up, start taking it at night instead of in the morning. So my sleeplessness went away, so I could fall asleep right away. I felt better during the day. Kind of figured that out. Now, if you're struggling with anxiety, it takes a lot to ask for help. I mean, for me, I knew something was wrong about this time last year. I literally wrote a blog post that, I thought everything was going okay, and then I realized, holy crap, there actually is something wrong. And I should have known that, and I did know that at the time, that was kind of like, okay, I need to get this figured out. I've always kind of dealt with it. I've always been able to, I've kind of farmered up, right? I just kind of dealt with it the way I dealt with things and moved on. And I was able to get through things, but it was causing me, we'll just say, a lot of stress. As, you take on the low grain prices last year, along with coronavirus, you threw everything in last year. It just, that amplified my anxiety. It made it even worse. And that's where I hit a wall. And there are ways to get through that, and a lot of it is usually talking to somebody, but for me, it's medication. And that's, there's a stigma to it, and I really don't fully understand. I never did before, and now that I'm on something, I still don't quite understand it. If I take a pill once a day and it makes me, takes away that imbalance that I have, most of this stuff is a chemical imbalance. So it takes away that chemical imbalance I have. It makes me able to function and do everything the way I should be doing, or act like a normal person. There should be no stigma attached to it. Now, if you're dealing with anxiety and you're watching this and you watch Kevin Cowell's video talking about his brother and what happened in that situation, you should really seek out and just talk to somebody. There's different options. There's all kinds of people to talk to. You don't have to talk to the neighbors. Even if they do find out, who gives a crap? Literally, once I found out what was really going on and I got everything straightened away, I talked to a few close friends of mine that are also potential clients and farmers in other places. And there's a lot of people that deal with this and have been on medication or are on medication, but they don't want to talk about it because they're afraid to, deal with the stigma that is attached to that. There's nothing wrong with me. There was nothing wrong with me before. I could still fully function. I was still getting my job done, but at the same time, it's something that affected me greatly. I didn't want to do anything after I got home. I was worried about going to the store because if somebody called, all I'd be able to do is think about that at the store. I kind of looked online to kind of see who else has dealt with stuff like this, and I'll preface this by my anxiety is a little different, but I think everybody's is, no matter what you do, but mine is very closely resembled by Will Wheaton, who was a Star Trek child star back in the 90s. And Will Wheaton's been on like Big Bang Theory and a bunch of other things. Will Wheaton dealt with a lot of the same things I dealt with, where when I was a kid in high school, I got in a car accident and I was listening to a specific album, and I remember the album, Stay and Break the Cycle. To this day, or to at least 6 months ago, I could not listen to that album because I was worried that something bad would happen if I listened to that album. I know something bad happened to me in the past when I was driving one of my 2 trucks, and I didn't want to drive that truck for a month because I was worried that I'd have a bad day. If I use a specific kind of body wash, and that something bad happened when I was using that body wash, I would switch to a different brand because I was so worried that, you know, up here that would affect me at some point. Seems really strange. It doesn't make sense to a lot of people. If you're dealing with anxiety, it probably makes a lot of sense to you. So those are things that I deal with, that I did deal with, and now I've gone off of that. Haven't had a drink since September 4th. Haven't had a panic attack. I've been, every day is a new day. To me, it looks like it's a reset switch. If you're dealing with anxiety, that's something you would love to have. Some kind of switch you could just flip, and then your life would get so much better. And to me, that was that day. And everything since then has been just a new day. It's a different time. It's a different way for me. You'll notice I'm missing a cyst next to my eye that I had for about 4 or 5 years. I had what I just called white coat syndrome. I was always afraid of going to the doctor, to the point where I almost didn't get my CDL because my blood pressure was so high when I was at the doctor, because they were saying that my blood pressure is high, that they were worried about giving me my CDL. So they, it's one of those things kind of made one worse at the same time, right? I'm at the doctor's office and they say your blood pressure is too high. Well, if we can't get you to calm down, we're not going to give you your CDL. What do you think's going to happen? My blood pressure went up even more. So then I got put on a shorter leash, and then eventually I kind of got through that, and everything's fine. But that's the stuff you deal with when you have anxiety. And, it's like anything else. If you have, let's just say diabetes, if you can be put on insulin, there's no stigma. I have no stigma for people that get put on insulin. I have a lot of friends that aren't overweight that are on insulin. And, they need that to survive. And it's no different for me to be on sertraline, to use that to survive or do my job. So what this really boils down to is there's a stigma attached, right? But there really shouldn't be. And, I'm very open and very honest about what goes on in my life. And this was something I kind of held back. Not a lot of people knew about it. I felt very important to kind of talk through my story and what I went through, and show that there's options out there. There are people that have gone through this. There's a lot of people like me that I know on Twitter that have gone through this, and I know personally, and in my family that have gone through all this. We're all better for what we went through, and understand that going forward, it's literally like a reset switch. That being said, I have contact information on my website. Honestly, if somebody's going through something like this, I've stopped what I was doing in Harvest before to talk to a friend that was going through something. And, we're all willing to answer a phone call or a text message, or, if you're dealing with something that you as a farmer or consultant, an agronomist, you name it, you're afraid to talk to somebody about. I'm very open and honest. I'll say that I went through probably the same thing you're going through, and I'm more than willing to talk to people about this. My inbox is open, for lack of a better term, and there's numerous other people. I'm sure people will step up, hopefully, potentially after watching this. That we're all kind of we're a collective group in agriculture. We all kind of help through challenges, and it's weird that, to me, that mental illness or mental health is a stigma that people just want to get through, and they don't want to talk about. And it's no different than anything else in life. We've all had our challenges. We've all had to get through things. If somebody breaks a leg or gets cancer in the middle of harvest, all the neighbors get together and help them get through harvest. There should be no difference with that and mental illness or mental health. So if you're dealing with any of this, if any of this sounds familiar to you, reach out to somebody. For me, I wasn't depressed. I wasn't gonna drive my vehicle off the edge of the road and try to find the nearest tree or bridge embankment to try to end it all. That wasn't me. And I'm lucky because I saw that before I got to that point. Now, it's a tricky situation, but for me, I wasn't going to call this the suicide hotline because I wasn't suicidal, but I still was having issues to the point where it was affecting my health. It wasn't affecting my job performance, but it was definitely affecting my health, and it was affecting how I did everything every day. So now that's gone. I'm, like I said, I hit a reset switch, and it really is almost that easy. Talk to somebody, go see your doctor. I know somebody that I am very close to that did the exact same thing about 2 weeks before I did, and it made me more comfortable doing what I did, and we're both better for it. So if you're struggling with something, reach out, find somebody. I know there's a few of us that have always talked about it. There's somebody on the Girls Talk Ag podcast that talks about this all the time publicly. And I did send her a message and said, hey, thank you for being so open and honest about this, because it helped me seek out help and do what I did. So this is a really long video. I've been droning. If you need help, reach out. Definitely do it. If something doesn't feel right, definitely reach out. Don't let your body get to that point where you're considering doing something you shouldn't be considering doing. I didn't get to that point. I'm lucky that I didn't. But I've had a lot of training, and I've had a lot of experience with mental health issues with numerous people that I deal with on even a daily basis sometimes. And we've all gotten through it. We've all been better for what we've done, and better after this happened. So there is help. There's a lot of people that are more than willing to work with you and help you. There's more people that are probably not as vocal as I or some other people are about this. They're more than willing to help you. So stick in there. Reach out to somebody. If you're dealing with something that just doesn't feel right, and you're having trouble, getting up in the morning or putting your socks on, or getting in the truck to go do something, or you just can't stop working because if you stop working, it's going to bother you. All things that, talk to somebody. It's not something that you did wrong. It's just something that, as a lot of people say, God gave you. And, we're all everybody's dealt with something. Definitely reach out. We're always here to help. There's a lot of people that will be willing to help. So that's it. I'll catch you guys next time.